Hello, my name is Christina Lagans, and I'm going to be talking about culture, teaching, and learning. To start, what is culturally responsive teaching, or CRT? CRT is an intentional approach to acknowledging the cultural diversity in the classroom and in the world at large. It focuses on the assets that students bring to the classroom and views students' experiences as positive. It also benefits all students, regardless of their cultural background. So, how can educators make the classroom environment more inclusive? Some strategies include building relationships, examining materials, classroom decor, and curriculum, engage in self reflection, and build modes of communication. Educators can build relationships by learning how to correctly pronounce students' names and pronouncing them correctly every time, providing opportunities for students to share stories about their personal experiences. Educators can also reach out to parents to establish connections and lines of communication that specifically work for them. Classroom decor materials and curriculum can easily be used to support an inclusive classroom environment. Educators can choose classroom posters and decor that represent a wide variety of people and cultures, and select classroom materials that reflect the diversity in the world, such as books with a variety of characters. It's important for students to be able to see themselves represented in the materials used in school. Educators can also incorporate multicultural curriculum into classes that give students voice and choice in the classroom, and this way students can choose applications of their learning that's relevant to them. Educators should engage in self reflection to identify unconsciously held biases. One way to do this is to take the tests that are available at Harvard's Project Implicit. And educators can build and maintain open lines of communication with students and their families by using multiple modes of communication in order to make it accessible to all students and their families. So sometimes using a variety of devices and tools such as Google Forms, or online translators, or virtual conference options makes communications more accessible to your students' families. Linguistic diversity in ESOL is another aspect to examine in order to make classrooms inclusive environments. In 2021, there were about 4.9 children in U.S. public schools learning English as another language. And ESOL stands for English to Speakers of Other Languages, which is a more descriptive way to talk about this group of students, since oftentimes English isn't just a second language for a student. ESOL students face unique challenges that schools need to be prepared to address. And it's important to note that viewing ESOL students' experiences as a positive asset to their learning is key to providing them with effective instruction. So, how can educators support ESOL students in their classroom? Some supports include scaffolding, language use, environment, and BICS versus CALP language. Educators can scaffold instruction for ESL students to make instruction accessible, and one example of this is using sentence stems to help ESL students begin to write and build confidence in their writing. So, for example, a student can be given the sentence stem, what surprised me was dot 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 because dot dot dot. So they only have to fill in the dot 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 sections in order to write a complete sentence. Educators can monitor their own language use in order to make themselves more comprehensible to students. So, if educators speak clearly and naturally and use simple language, they can be more easily understood by students. However, it's important not to act as if you're talking to a much younger child or dumb down your language. Educators can also use positive body language to communicate with students that they're there to be a supportive person in the school. Educators can also avoid slang and idiomatic expressions in their language so that students can more easily understand. ESOL students also benefit from increased exposure to print-rich environments. So ways that educators can use this in their classroom is by having word walls, a lot of books and posters, labeling things around the room, and having bulletin boards to show off student work. BICS versus CALP language is important for instructors to understand. BICS stands for Basic Interpersonal Communicative Skills, and CALP stands for Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. And students often develop BICS, which is like the language they would use to talk with their friends or to talk about the weather or what's for lunch. And they develop that often before CALP, which is the content specific language, such as the different types of um, math operations, for example. And each type of language skill requires different types of support and instruction. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope this has made uh, given you some ideas for some culturally responsive teaching strategies to use in your classroom.